around the learning target, and they should have, right? You have to have, for every classroom, there's got to be formative assessments going on that are informal and formal, and it needs to be centered on the learning target, or if you're going to do a student-centered, learning-centered classroom. So I'm kind of surprised, and then I'm always surprised that I'm running across lessons because we're so hurried to get everything in. I'm running across lessons that miss that student-centered thing that says conclude. Have a conclusion to your lesson that causes kids to reflect on what was learned and what they know and what they don't know and what they need to do to be successful tomorrow. I mean, we know we should be doing that, but sometimes we just see the clear target. As I wrote it on the board, so I've accomplished that. Clear targets become clear to kids when they've experienced it, processed it throughout, find out where they are and where they think about where they need to be and what action steps are going to be student-centered, what action steps the student is going to have to take. I mean, I know you're going to because of the kind of people you are, but you've got to really work in that student self-efficacy flow of the principles of learning to get kids to think about what actions do they need to take to really accomplish and master the outcomes, okay? It's true that without the opportunity to correct, learning is likely to stop, and we improve with multiple attempts. Amen?
Amen.
So just real quick, have a conversation with your team. In those 5 that you see there, what are the actions you would expect in each other's classrooms if you were going to manage those and have those in place and be implemented, and truths, really truths? Because I've seen some classrooms where they don't allow kids to, like, continue to learn, right? I've seen classrooms where they actually don't make adjustments for kids who have difficulties and don't give them additional opportunities or the opportunity to correct their mistakes and continue to learn. So I'm always wondering if we have actions that support our principles of learning. Real quick at your colleagues, what do you think? Do you think you support all those? Is there anything missing in those concepts of a student-centered classroom, a learning-centered classroom, and a student-centered that applies those principles of learning? Thoughts? Share out with your colleagues and come back. I'll share this. so let me show you the next part of the list. There are others, by the way, but these seem to be the ones that dominate a student-centered, learning-centered classroom. That we recognize that the truth that effort and preparation is what most often leads to success. We're not just born with this ability to know and understand the concepts, the knowledge, and skills. We actually learn it through effort and preparation. And looking at your intervention model, I'd say you guys definitely get that point, as well as what happens in the classroom. The brain is chunking and swirling, trying to make connections. That would be why you use your, how many of you do the thinking maps? Thinking maps, graphic organizers to help kids. Yeah, if the brain is chunking and swirling, that's true, that the brain is chunking and swirling, you need tools that help kids organize that chunking and swirling that's going on in their brain. And you have to stop about every 10 minutes to let them help organize that, to be reflective of where they are in their learning. And so sometimes we see people take a concept like thinking maps or graphic organizers and they just do it, but they don't understand why they do it. When you understand why you do it, you probably do it at a deeper level, is the point. And it's true that the brain is chunky and swirling, you gotta use those. People are wired differently. Amen, right? We know that. We know that personality types are different. We know that how we process information is different, right? Think of these 4 words, or write them down. Okay, how many of you have something to write with? Anybody ever have something to write with? Give you time to grab it. Something to write with. It's easier if you write instead of just think. But if you didn't bring something to write with, type it into your phone under the notes section or something. So here are 4 words for you, right? Please write them down. First word is horse. Write down the word horse. 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 Yeah, H. Yeah, with an H. How am I saying it? You got to sit up front to really hear me. Yeah, horse. Yeah, let's do the animal horse, not the other kind of horse. Right? Yeah. Some people didn't think about that one. Got it? The next word is nose. Nose. Yeah, now we're getting so one on the face, okay? Let's do the one on the face, all right? Any face you can think. Nose. Third word. Oh gosh, anvil. Anvil. How do you say it? Anvil. Okay, I think I'm saying it the same way you guys say it. Anvil. A-N-V-I-L. Right. Last word. Clock. 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 Tick-tock clock. All right, now don't talk to anybody. Don't talk to anybody. What I want you to do is I want you to circle the word on the list that you don't think belongs on the list and write your reason why. Be sure you write why. Make a commitment to why you chose the word. All right? So circle the word on the list that you don't think belongs on the list and write a reason why. Just take a moment and study this. Which word does, in your opinion, which word does not belong? All right, give me a little wave if you've circled a word. If you haven't circled a word, then you need a little more processing time. That's okay. Honestly, there's all kinds of reasons. Some people see patterns really, really fast, right? How many of you circled a word like immediately? You saw a pattern? Okay. No. Now give me a wave if you, because now they're feeling pressure because they haven't circled a word, right? Ooh, timing. Time is a pressure thing, isn't it? Oh, we never enough time. All right, now do this. Quickly huddle up with 3 or 4 people. Share your word and your reason why.
the O that it would be different.
That's the exact same thing I looked over and when you
All right, so this is just to prove the point. I mean, stand up if you chose horse. Stand up if you chose the word horse. Come on, be brave, be bold. Stand up. It's always the fewest number of people in the room, just so you know, right? And yet, it's like the most obvious answer, right? Tell us why.
The other things are all, they're pieces that work, and the horse is a whole for me.
The horse is a whole for her. Why? It's the only thing that's an animal, is the most common one. And you kind of go, how'd you guys miss that? Right? How'd you miss that it's the only animal? Right? Now what we say about people who choose the horse is they didn't have to think very deeply. That doesn't mean they're not deep thinkers. It just means that they saw, oh my gosh, this is so obvious, right? It's horse because it's the only living thing. Right? Then other people have a case for why they think the other words are. So what was the second word? Nose? Stand up if you chose nose. Okay, so usually about 3 reasons for nose. All right, and some of them because you see patterns. So why? Somebody tell me, why did you choose nose? Only body part. How many? Sit down if you said it because it's the only body part. Wow. So what are the other reasons? 4 letters. Sit down if you said 4 letters. Look at all you did. That's a lot of pattern people, right? You able to see patterns? Wait. Okay. Why? Tell me why. You see? Oh, wow. It's the only one with long vowels now. Woo! Never leaving our world. What do you teach? Okay. And one more reason.
it can't be made of metal.
It can't be made of.
So like the horses on like the
Oh, a carousel?
Yeah.
Can't put a nose on a carousel. Anvil's made of metal. Clocksmith. Wow, I haven't heard that one. Okay. Different reasons for different people, right? Sometimes people say it's part of something, is a part of a whole. That's one of the reasons, all right? Stand up if you chose anvil. 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 Whoa! Well, that's not surprising. It's always the one that has most people stand. But a lot of different reasons. Tell me why. Give me one. Somebody share. Yeah.
It doesn't have a face.
Doesn't have a face.
Oh, that's a
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, I like that. Okay, that doesn't have a face. Okay, so sit down if you said it's the only one without a face. There's 2 of you. There's a pair of you. Other reasons. Doesn't have an O. Sit down if you said that was your reason. That's a lot of pattern people, all right? Why else? Give me another reason for anvil.
It doesn't run.
It doesn't run. It's the only one that doesn't run. Horse runs, nose runs, clock runs. Those are the clever people. Right? Another reason for anvil. Starts with a vowel. Only one that doesn't start with a vowel. Other reasons?
Doesn't have anything to do with the horse.
Doesn't have anything to do with.
So like a horse has a nose and like in horse races they have to time it, so there's a clock, but they make horseshoes.
And they make horseshoes out of anvils. Oh, but sometimes I'm It's okay. All right. Any other reasons for anvil?
I just had speed.
What?
Like speed, like a horse is normally really fast. Like if you look at a clock, sometimes you're doing it for like speed and then like right on the nose.
Oh, okay. So the speed of the nose, right? Right on the nose. Okay. Okay. Why?
First graders
First graders wouldn't
wouldn't be able to define it.
be able to define what it is. It's a. All right, Craig, we still stand. 2 syllables. 2 syllables, which is really great, right? Now look, anvil. He thinks in terms of syllables. Anvil, right? Sometimes I find people they don't usually say it, but they circle it because it's really because it's a word that we don't use as commonly they don't really know what it is. And actually, their friends will pull up an image on their phone. Here's what it is. You go, oh yeah, Roadrunner cartoons. Yeah. Yeah. It's okay. It's just the truth that we were all wired differently with different experiences, right? That's just the truth of it. That's just the proof. Oh, there's one more. Clock. Clock people stand up. Now, it could be, clock is sometimes chosen and doesn't require very deep thinking. It's the only thing that tells time, right? But other reasons?
I said because the other 3 didn't have to do with horses.
The other reasons did have to do with horses, and so you see relational things. Nice. Other reasons?
Horse has a nose and we need to make horseshoes.
Yep, relational as well, right? Don't need a clock to do any of that. Other reasons?
I just picture in my head when I was remembering the words that horse puts nose to be smelling the animal, like a drop off the wagon, a clock, nobody drops a clock.
Wow.
Wrong, sorry.
That's okay. I love the kind of like Blossman thinking like that. Okay, what else?
I just had an intuition, I think I like the word.
Oh, there we go. I just like the word. Just going with my gut, right? You don't like that word clock because it represents time. We never have enough of it, and we're always searching for more, right? Yeah. I was in California, and a middle school 8th grade math teacher, he says, I chose clock because to me, clock represents man's attempt to capture something that can't be captured. Time. See, in the whole sense of the universe, he says, time is infinite. And yet, for eons, mankind has tried to capture it. First in calendars, and then months, days, and then hours, and then what are we talking about? Like this, like craziness, you know? I thought, oh my gosh, you're so philosophical, right? That was my first thought. My second thought is, I wonder what his team meetings sound like. Get into this flow of things? Yeah. We're all wired differently with different experiences. This is the real trick of teaching, right? Is knowing where kids are, what their wiring, what their experiences are, what they need to know, or then need help with knowing because they came to us with some missing pieces. And we got to do everything we can not to let them have these missing pieces, right? To be successful. So we learn best in a positive environment, and we work harder and longer when we're internally motivated. Amen to all those, right? So here you go. Think of those principles of learning, and take a look at this picture. This is a student-centered classroom. This is such great evidence of a student-centered classroom. They're trying to get kids to own their learning in this classroom. I don't know if you can tell that or not, but one of the things that everybody wants is for kids to own their learning. They're also wanting to reinforce those principles of learning. A student-centered classroom is helping kids understand what it takes to learn. Not just teaching to do really well on a test or state test, but really also understanding your theories and principles of learning that help you accomplish what you want to accomplish. I mean, if you just take a look at that one example of this picture and think about this is a teamwork thing. They created this data notebook, and kids are processing their data from the data notebook. Now, if you could just think about what are all the principles of learning that come into play, right here. There's another one too called self-efficacy that you can find in this too. But what would you say are the principles of learning going on in this student-centered classroom, learning-centered, student-centered classroom? See if you can pull out the principles of learning that are in evidence in that picture.
Everything's up at fingertips at their level.
What's that?
Everything's up at fingertips.
So this student has, you see the pictures around, right? Yeah, it's on there. So even the room arrangement tells you something about it. Do you think they're using manipulatives in that classroom to help meet the needs of kids so that kids have access to that? Absolutely. What else you see? Multiple attempts at something. Which, boy, his first attempt, not very good. It didn't do well. But just stick with it. Now he can consume data. Now he sees, he's not just hearing, just stick with it. Come on, keep trying. He says, look what happens when you do. Right? And you just never know. Boy, when we're wired differently, we never know when it takes off. What else do you see? Principles of learning.
He's improving with multiple.
He's improving with multiple attempts. What else do you see? Smile, which means what?
He's happy. He's learning.
Internal motivation, positive experience, positive environment that the teachers are orchestrated. I mean, I like feel-good classrooms. I like feel-good classrooms when kids are also learning because we have high expectations that they'll meet those achievement outcomes, right? What else? Anything else you notice about this from the principles of learning? Student-centered classrooms, learning-centered classrooms.
It's a clear target.
Clear targets. Yep, we got this note here, what it means and what we're going to have to accomplish, right? What else do we have? Clear targets is a big one for me. I don't know about you guys, but clear targets is a huge thing for me because I think, true, kids will hit the target if they know what the target is. We've got to be good at defining exactly what that means kids have to accomplish, right? And then we have to give them multiple opportunities if they struggle. And then if we can go visual with it, vision is our most powerful sense. And I know we work hard to activate all senses, hearing and everything, but seriously, John Medina's book, Brain Rules, he can demonstrate that vision is our most powerful sense that we have. Going visual with things like that is very, very helpful for kids. What else? Anything else on the principles of learning? So yeah, if we think about a learning-centered classroom, here's another example, right? You may have seen, I don't know if you've seen this video, I apologize if you haven't. I think this teacher from teachingchannel.org, how many of you subscribe to teachingchannel.org? Yeah, let me make sure it's a free thing. They don't bug you. I mean, they seriously, it's like every 2 weeks they might get an email saying, take a look at some videos we think you might like to see. Watch how this teacher does this, right? Oh, I'm sorry, this is a video. Excuse me, I lost it. Here it is, here it is. It's just a moment, you start.
I'm Leah Alcala, I teach 7th and 8th grade math. Today you're going to see the way that I have started grading tests. Okay, you guys, right now what we're going to do is get our test back from Friday. I no longer put grades on tests. And my feedback is all in the form of highlighted mistakes. When is the retake for this test? Friday after school. How do you find out your grade? You go on Power School tomorrow. It'll be posted tomorrow. Here we go. For me, I really want every interaction I have with a kid to be a learning moment. What I was finding when I was handing back tests, the old way that I put a grade on it, is kids would look at their grade, decide whether they were good at math or not, and put the test away and never look at it again. We're gonna look at this next one. By not putting a grade on the test, I feel like what I'm allowing them to do is kind of wrestle with the math that they produced for me first, and think of the grade second. When I first did this, the number one question I would get every time I passed back a test was, what's my grade on this? How many points is this problem worth? And I had to do a lot of, remember, your grade in 7th grade isn't nearly as important as how much math you learn. So that took a lot of reframing for them. And at this point, very few kids will ask me their grade, and most of the questions that I get are about math. I want to show you, before we get your test back, some of my favorite mistakes that came up a couple times. They could be from any of my classes. -4 times 2x minus 3 equals 28. I highlighted that 2x equals 7. Tell your group what is wrong this wrong based on this. So they will lose points for both lines of this problem. The other advantage is I can highlight things that I wouldn't even take points off for. So for instance, on today's test, I highlighted thinking right that it was the number of treats that Lucia baked, but I actually didn't take off any points for that because they're going to be fine going forward. But I wanted to bring their attention to that.
Yeah, I did the
Once I've done all of that, I look at all the tests a second time. And now I'm looking at the test as a whole, and I say, what kind of mistakes is this child making? Are there common mistakes that are happening over and over again, or are there lots of different types of mistakes? What happened here? Okay, so similar mistakes there. That's really good. If they have something in their mind that works, and they're applying that mistake over and over again, I'm not gonna take off a point from every problem for that. That's an easy mistake for me to fix, because we just have to have that one conversation. Versus if they're just doing random things all over the place. Both of those tests might have a lot of highlights on them, but one would definitely have a much higher grade. Yeah. Why is that wrong? Can you fix it for them? One piece of advice is that it doesn't take longer to grade a test this way. I think that was a big fear. It is a similar amount of time and it's far more enjoyable. I felt highlight happy. My hope is that through this strategy, they see that studying their mistakes and learning from their mistakes is really what learning is. What happened here? Plus -5. Everything else was perfect, including your name and stuff. Why is this low? I allow them to retake the test whenever they want, and I'll give them a new version of the test. Often kids need to sit with me a little bit more before they're ready to retake, so they'll come see me at lunch or during advice so you can go over it. I didn't really understand it. Oh, do you know what to do now? Yeah. What do you do? Yeah, why don't you do that right now? This one's a test. So to normalize the process of making mistakes is very much the goal for these kids. It allows them to take more risks.
Okay, so she has a pretty healthy view of assessment in that video. Now, here's the deal though. If I was on her team and she was sharing a practice of how she responds when kids don't learn or when they struggle, which is, she's answering one of the questions of a collaborative team, how will we respond? I would have some questions for her. And that's where we have to kind of think about ourselves in relationship to a collaborative team. There's some things about her practice I'm confused about. There's some things about her practice I want to dig deeper into. And so I would ask her some questions, and I probably would ask her if I could come in and watch her do that sometime. Just to see how she organizes those kids into groups and how she, right? I mean, if she were here and sitting on your team, what questions would you ask her? And you could even say, well, we're all math teachers. You can say we're an interdisciplinary team, because you can do the same process in any subject area. I've seen it in first grade paragraphs, where they do the same process with kids. So real quick, what questions, it could be things you're wondering about, it could be things that you say, oh, I get it, but could you explain a little, what questions would you want to ask her? Talk to your neighbors first and see if they have the same questions that you have about that practice. Student-centered, learning-centered classroom. What do you think? Yeah, so, could you throw some out? I mean, I definitely have like one for in particular going, why are you doing the retest on Friday after school? Right? They may have that same question. Like, why would you penalize kids or yourself for having to do that after school on Friday? You knew you might have to do it, so you would build it during the school day, obviously. But aren't there some other questions too? Like, what's another question you asked? I mean, legit, right? You go, how does it not take you more time when you go through the test twice?
Yeah.
Every time I hear that, I just want to turn the idea off because I don't have time. I mean, how many of you feel like you're crunched for time? I never find a teacher or principal or superintendent, I never find an educator sitting around going, I have so much time on my hands, I don't know what to do with myself. I think I'll grade the test twice. My daughter-in-law teaches math down in Florida. She does this middle school math. She does the same thing. But she knows what she's looking for, so she doesn't go through them twice. She knows how to score those things and use the highlighter the first time, right? Because she knows she's looking for common mistakes. Where did the error occur, right? Yeah, so it doesn't really take 2 times, right? What other questions would you ask me? Yes?
I'd be curious how she handles subsequent assessments. She does the same thing.
Do you do all your assessments the same way?
Kids assess a 3rd time.
Yeah. Yeah. What about the kids who got them all right? Do they have to retake, or did they just get their grade? You know, that kind of stuff. How many times did you have to keep saying to them, "It's not about your grade in math; it's about how much math you learn," right? Reframing that took a long time, right? It takes a long because they've been conditioned to how many points is this one. Anything else you'd ask her? What if the what if the student doesn't show up Friday after school? How do you handle that? I want to know, right? That's why you can't do it Friday after school. I mean, seriously, that's just not thinking it through, right? I mean, to me, if you know that you're going to give an assessment, some kids might fail it or not do well on it, you better plan to have them relearn during the school day, not after school, not at home. I saw one team, they did the same, their 3rd grade team did the same practice, except for they didn't go over it in the classroom like she orchestrated it like that. Wasn't that cool the way she didn't pass the papers back first? I mean, that's a little detail, but it's an important detail. A lot of people miss that one. She didn't pass the papers back first. She went to the document camera and talked about some of her favorite errors. Now she was highlighted happy. Here's some of the things I noticed, right? And then she passed the papers back. She had them engage first and problem solve first, just get the motors running, and not just look at their score or their grade and start processing independently. Instead, she wanted it to be more of a collaborative effort in the classroom too. Then she offers her help by just moving on. Such a good practice in so many ways, you know, as opposed to that old practice that we used to see teachers do, which is go over the test. Give the test back and go over the test. This is very engaging. Going over the test has lower engagement, right? It's not as engaging as something like this. This definitely is exploring and problem solving, by the way. Kids are having to explore and problem solve. And when you look at brain imaging from Dr. Gary Small, where they ran brain images of a person who's just reading text, and that same person, when they're searching for answers on Google, doing a Google search, it is amazing how much more red there is in the brain, all over the brain, as it fires when we're searching. I mean, it's absolutely amazing that we are wired for problem solving and searching for answers and exploration. Here she's orchestrating that in a really beautiful way, right? So I'm not saying that's the only way to do it, I'm just saying that's a nice way of engaging kids in that, taking ownership of their learning, processing where they are in their learning, what they need to do differently, and then making sure they have the time scheduled during the school day to come back and demonstrate to themselves that they can master this. And that's the key. Some people do this reassessment. I know most of you do. All of you probably do reassessment. You can't imagine a school that's a model PLC school or district not allowing kids to reassess. That would make no sense at all, right? It means you don't pay attention to the principles of learning. And it also means you don't understand performing assessment. So, of course, as professionals, you all allow kids to reassess, but it's not about getting a higher score. It's about learning and mastering the targets. It results in higher grade distributions, more students making A's and B's, which you're okay with because of the practice, but it really has to make sure in your mind it's not grade inflation, it's helping kids learn. And we got to really make sure we're clear on that with kids. and always frame it that way. What is the value for self-efficacy? I mean, what you know about self-efficacy, just kind of experience and promote it right now. What is the big value you get when you allow kids to continue to learn and then demonstrate to themselves and therefore to you that they can do this work and can master that work? Why is that so important for a student's self-efficacy? Talk to your neighbor real quick. It's not just about grades. It can't be. You got to make sure it's about self-efficacy when you're doing this work, right? Okay, so if you've ever watched this in the classroom, you know the effect this has on students' growth mindset and fixed mindsets. This is the work you already do. I always want to make sure that people understand assuring a common response in our classroom means it's not just about do we have intervention time during the school day for kids who have gaps in their learning, but what do each of us do in the classroom, in a learning-centered, student-centered classroom to foster high self-efficacy. If feedback is our most powerful tool in the self-efficacy factor, and we see the value of self-efficacy, you know that feedback has to be one that encourages kids to continue to learn, to see themselves as a learner. Every time a student gets a score on a paper, even in highlights, right, they are making a judgment about who they are. Every student has an emotional reaction. Trust me, they have an emotional reaction to a score on a page or paper. That emotional reaction is a judgment. Am I good at this or I'm not good at this? But it goes beyond that. It's not just am I good at this or not good at this, it's how do you see me? How do you, the teacher, see me based on that score? Now you may not want them to see you as judgmental, but they, trust me, they're taking an emotional leap that way. Do you see me as capable or not capable? That has an effect on their self-efficacy. They're also making a judgment in terms of how they see themselves in your eyes too. So how do you see me and how do I see myself with you? They also make a judgment and have an emotional connection to how do I see myself in relationship to my peers? And how do my peers see me in this relationship within the classroom? It's huge. The self-efficacy factor, the greatest challenge we have is to provide, is to get self-efficacy to gain hope for kids, right? Who might sometimes struggle, who might develop a need to have that enhanced because of our effort inside the classroom. When we think about assuring a common response, right, we have to just keep asking ourselves, do we have that view of assessment? If assessment is our most powerful tool with the feedback component, then what people who studied it was that you can either enhance or destroy a student's desire to succeed in school more permanently and more quickly through your assessment practices than with any other tool you have at your disposal. Now the cool thing about us is none of us are out there trying to destroy a student's desire to succeed. We're all trying to enhance a student's desire to succeed, and that desire is connected to the growth mindset, the self-efficacy factor that is so important in the work that we do here, right? So we're asking this question, how do you use assessment as an instructional tool, like she's using it as an instructional tool? I mean, do you see assessment that way? How do you use assessment to support self-efficacy? And do your teammates have the same view of assessment that you do? And is that a common view that's healthy in our classrooms? I just want us to kind of explore and share that with each other for the rest of this afternoon, because self-efficacy has a lot of pieces to it, but one of the most impactful factors is our response when kids get a test paper back. Having them track and study their progress, and study means understanding what works and what didn't work in your learning effort, is critical. We can do that with kids at every level. I had a preschool, pre-K teacher down in Florida grab me, pull me into her classroom to show me her process of having kids compare their work, not to each other, but to the learning target and the standards on a 4-point scale. And I was just blown away about what she was able to show me. She says, I knew preschool kids needed this and they could do this, and I'm trying to make sure that that's the effort I have. Is here's the standard, not how do you compare to other kids in the classroom, but here's the standard, how do you compare to that standard? What do we need to work on to reach that standard in our pre-K program or our pre-K curriculum? I mean, I've seen it done with really great forethought. I mean, thinking the whole process out, and then I've seen some mistakes happen, right? I've seen some mistakes happen. And nobody means to have those mistakes happen, but they just do, okay? I was in a 4th grade teacher's classroom. He passes the papers back. The kids are taking a test. He's trying to become a great teacher. He really is. He's on the journey. He's just on the journey. I admire him because he's not certified. He has a college degree, but he's not certified as a teacher. He didn't go through teacher prep course. And I'm going, wow, we just need to help him along this journey, because I'm standing next to 6 4th grade boys in this high poverty school as they get their test papers back. As they get their test papers back, they all have scores on them. One of them has a 10 out of 10. The other 5 kids in that team had 5 out of 10s or less. So the other had all failed it. Now that's not going to happen in your school, but just imagine if you are a student that had the 5 out of 10 and other kids had passing scores. Now, you can almost predict what's going to happen in that group of 6 4th grade boys. I could have predicted it, you could too. Because he did one more thing. It's just, he said, hey, don't worry about your scores. What do you think they're already thinking about? What's my score? But don't worry about it, because in just a moment, we'll go over the test. But I do want you to know how we did as a class. Now we're going to compare ourselves to how we did as a class. We had 2 students with a 10 out of 10, 3 students with a 9 out of 10, 2 students with an 8 out of 10. Everybody else had 5 out of 10s or less. So don't worry, we're going to go over this in just a moment. Just kind of huddle up and think about fixed mindset, growth mindset kids, what you know already about them. Because these 5 kids just got validation that you're not good at this. 1 kid got validation that I'm really good at this, but it's a high poverty school. So what do you think happened in that group of 6 4th grade boys? Talk to your neighbor, see if you can predict what happened. Anybody want to take a... Yeah, you almost know immediately what happened in that group. Celebrations. There's a celebration of the 5 students who had failed the test. They high-fived each other, they congratulated each other. The 10 out of 10 kid hid his paper and put it away and high-fived him too. His effort will eventually wane because of the emotional connection to that peer group situation that's going on there. And the only reason they did, see, and it drives us nuts. That's the kind of stuff that drives us nuts, because we go, see, they don't even care how they did it. Anyway, that happened only for one reason, is because you allowed them, you didn't orchestrate that differently, choreograph that differently, for kids to interact with it differently than to just see a score and make a determination. And fixed mindset kids, they do everything they can, right? So they hide themselves and disguise themselves, and they do things that like celebrate low scores, and we make assumptions about them and their behavior and how they view education. Self-efficacy. Boy, there's a lot pieces involved in that, and we're going to explore those when we come back for the rest of the afternoon. But we do need to take our afternoon break, okay? So let's do another setting of the clock. All right, 10 minutes on your phones, and then come back in here, well, do 9 minutes, okay? And be back in here ready to go in 10, all right? Thanks, guys, for the afternoon. So